This is the iPad Pro. I've been using it intensively for over a year now, so I have all the answers to questions like, can the iPad replace your laptop? Can you use the iPad Pro for gaming? Is it good for school? Can you edit photos on the iPad? What about videos? Well, I'll get into all of that. But first, how is it physically held up? Well, it's still very beautiful and it was designed very well. It's very symmetrical all around, even when it comes to weight, and it's actually pretty light and very, very thin. It's actually a complete joy to use without the case to do stuff from reading, to drawing or writing, to using the internet, to watching videos, and to many, many more. It just feels like it has so much elegance and power in such a slim packaging. It's great. I won't use it without a case though if I was you. In fact, I actually never do. It hasn't been the most durable for me. I've actually been pretty careful with it, and it's only had about one good or bad fall from about waist height, and the damage really shouldn't have been that bad, especially because I had a case on it back then too. It was actually a case from Apple itself, the Folio one. Yeah, that case doesn't last so long, unless you're really, really careful, or more careful than me. And it definitely won't protect your iPad against the shortest of falls. I got this more bulky case instead, and I've been using it for a while now, and I feel very safe with the iPad in it. It even has a place to put the Apple Pencil, so it doesn't fall out. The magnets on the iPad are strong, but they're not that strong. So if you're not careful and you just rely on the magnets, your Apple Pencil will probably take some damage. Actually, most definitely, because you can't rely on just the magnets. They're not as strong as you think. Speaking of the Apple Pencil, I know the base price of the iPad is $799, basically $800, but it might as well be $929, an extra $129 because you have to get the Apple Pencil as well. If the iPad is a computer, then the Apple Pencil is basically the mouse. Well, not exactly, because it actually has proper mouse support now, which we'll talk about later. But my time with the iPad would have been way different, in a negative way, if I didn't have the Apple Pencil. Just using it as like a pointer when web browsing can entirely change the iPad from feeling like a real big iPhone something max to feeling like a better, more portable, personal computer. Apart from using it as just a pointer, the second generation Apple Pencil is just about the best stylus in the world. It can really feel like a real pencil, especially when writing on the paper-like screen protector. By the way, if you get the paper-like screen protector, just follow the instructions they give you. Don't get cocky unless you want to end up with air bubbles like me. Anyways, the technology of the second generation Apple Pencil is unmatched. Something that can ruin the experience of any stylus and make it feel slow, laggy, and unrealistic is latency. It can really take the experience of any stylus and make it feel like a downgrade when it comes to pen and paper. In fact, many people probably feel styluses are a downgrade from pen and paper. But this is simply not the case with the Apple Pencil. It is the closest thing to the actual pencil and paper experience easily. Let me show you something basically all other major styluses can't do. This is an actual pencil. I'm just gonna draw a circle and shade it, okay? See what I did there? No? Okay, look again. I just did something all major styluses in the market can't do. They can replicate a pencil when it comes to how light or how hard you push on it, and they can replicate a lighter or darker stroke, but they can't go into the 3D dimension you need to go into in order to shade. You don't shade with the tip of the pencil, you shade with the sides. And just about all of the major styluses of today have just a tip. They don't support touching the screen with the side, but the Apple Pencil does. It's on a different level. In fact, if drawing or any graphic design that has to do heavily with drawing is something you need your laptop for, then there's no need to ask. The iPad Pro plus the Apple Pencil can definitely replace your laptop. That's why basically all digital artists are switching to the iPad. Now, if it can replace your laptop when it comes to stuff like video editing, photo editing, work, school, and etc. though, well, we'll talk about that later. Right now, we're talking about the Apple Pencil, and it is just about the best stylus you can get your hands on. See, I really know this because I never even got a keyboard for my iPad. I went through several semesters of college without a pen and paper in my backpack. Sometimes it's not in my backpack at all. It was just me, my iPad Pro, and my Apple Pencil. And I didn't even miss pencil and paper, I'm telling you. I mean, I don't even plan on going back. That's how good it is. And I'm not just saying this because of the writing experience. It's more about all the other experiences that comes with it. If you don't use your laptop for work and school, and you're more old-fashioned, that means you use pen, paper, and physical documents, which means you must carry books, multiple books for multiple subjects. And you won't just need books for reading, you need books for writing too. And that means you can even run out of pages in your book and you need to get even more. That's just more and more stuff. Where are you gonna put it? If you write a lot and you write about a bunch of different stuff, then you have to date stuff properly, section out pages, erase stuff to make it clean. So you gotta stick with pencils or be real careful if you use pens. And if you wanna really commit and make it pretty, then you have to get a lot of different colored pens, you know, if you want to properly color coordinate it. And you must have a lot of time and be pretty organized to do all of this. See, I'm not really like you. I love that the iPad makes my life so much easier. I use the app Notability, and I'm telling you, pen and paper is kind of a downgrade. This is the way, trust me. People don't think about all the limitations with pen and paper. Imagine if you could copy and paste what you wrote down, then move it anywhere on the page. You have one pen or pencil, yes, but that one pencil can use any color on the rainbow. I've checked. Your notebook can have different sections with other individual notebooks that you can create with a touch of a button. And each book has like how many pages? Well, I don't really know because I can't really count that high. And it's not that I'm stupid or anything, I just don't know how to count to infinity. See, with the iPad Pro, you can even draw a perfect circle 10 out of 10 times. I don't think I need to say anymore. See, I don't even take advantage of all of these features as much as I should. There's actually a lot more you can do with this stuff. You should check out some people's creative notes on their iPads. Very, very pretty. The iPad Apple Pencil combination is just great. A lot of people use their laptop to take notes and do their schoolwork and work. I might not think the iPad would be truly useful. I actually used to feel that way too. But now I have the iPad and I've used it intensively, I have to say, the iPad Pro is on a different level of seamlessness compared to laptops, computers, MacBooks, etc. And there's several classes I take where the seamlessness really helps me out. There are some classes where the iPad automatically wins even when I would want to use my laptop over my iPad. I just won't be able to because it'll just be objectively worse. This applies in classes like math, for example, where you don't want to type equations and solve them. You got to write stuff like that down, you know? And you want to write fast and have it as seamless as pencil and paper. When my friends try writing on my iPad, they always do it like this, in a very unnatural, uncomfortable way. And then they're like, wow, it's cool. And I ask them, like, did it feel like pencil and paper? And then they're like, it's close, but it's not there exactly. I'm like, what's missing? And they're not sure, right? Then I tell them to commit to it, to treat it like pencil and paper, and just write. Just rest your hand on the screen and be comfortable. And that's when they understand why I can use it for all my math classes with no problems. See, the iPad does all of these things while being this skinny. That's pretty cool. But the real question is, can this skinny device still perform great while trying to handle more serious, heavy tasks like audio work, video editing, photo editing, gaming? And can it actually replace your laptop? Well, let's talk about photo editing first. Actually, there's not much to talk about because the iPad handles photo editing with ease. It can also be more fun and just seem more natural to edit with the screen closer to your face and with the Apple Pencil than with like a laptop with the screen on a table or in a lap. Speaking of, funny thing, yeah, the iPad Pro has a better screen than the best MacBook Pros ever made. At this moment at least. See, both of the screens, the MacBooks and the iPads, have very accurate displays, but the iPad has more pixels per inch because it's smaller, so technically it's sharper, which is good because it's actually becoming closer to your face, you know? But the killer feature the iPad has that no Mac has ever had that makes it a downgrade to leave the iPad screen for any other MacBook screen is the 120 Hz refresh rate. This alone makes the iPad feel on a different level of smooth. It performs great and never really lags by itself already, but with the 120 Hz refresh rate, it's just on a whole different level. Very few laptops can match it, and right now, no MacBook at all can match it here. But one device I do know that can match it is the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. Actually, to be honest, the S20 Ultra slightly beats the iPad Pro when it comes to overall smoothness. It's a bit complicated. Well, not really. See, the iPad has a 120 Hz refresh rate, but it also doesn't have a 120 Hz refresh rate. What it actually has is a variable refresh rate, where it's on 120 Hz when it needs to be, and not on 120 Hz when it doesn't need to be to save some battery. It actually does a good job, and most of the time, as far as you be concerned, like as far as I'm concerned, it's basically on 120 Hz. But at certain times though, you catch it looking more like 60 Hz. This mainly happens sometimes on some third-party applications that aren't optimized or aren't optimized the best. But sometimes I even notice it on apps like Twitter. But then it'll just go back to the 120 Hz refresh rate by itself though. And I couldn't even get it to lag and go to the 60 Hz for this video. But it has happened to me over the course of almost 2 years, you know? So it's not really that big a deal, but I have noticed it. Back to photo editing though, there's never really been a problem with the iPad when it came to this. The biggest problem, apart from file management, which we'll talk about later, was that there were no apps up to the level you might have needed to properly edit photos on a high level on the iPad. Things are a little different now though, because there are a multitude of photo editing apps you can choose from Darkroom to Lightroom, even up to the Photoshop app made just for the iPad without all the baby limitations it had before. I don't use Photoshop too much, but apparently it has almost all the features of the desktop app, but it is missing some. But it does perform better than all the desktop apps when it comes to things naturally suited to the iPad, like drawing. Anyways, when it comes to audio editing, recording, and audio production overall, I'll also say that the iPad lacks some hardcore features when you compare the apps it has to the big equivalent desktop apps like Logic, Audition, or Ableton Live. Actually, I think it's worse in audio when compared to photo editing. Because at the moment, one of the most advanced audio production apps the iPad has to offer is Garageband, the app made by Apple itself. But it has even less features than the desktop Garageband, which no one really brags about using in the first place. With that being said though, I still recorded just about all the audio for this video on GarageBand on the iPad, and I was able to plug in my audio interface, use multi-track recording, and even monitor my sound. I didn't edit the audio on the iPad though, because it was being annoying and I had to stress myself to find something as simple as proper noise reduction for free. Then again though, I do know that many music professionals have actually switched to the iPad and are able to do all their work on it, so I'm sure it is possible to use the iPad in that way with some app with some features, but it just seems like an unnecessary hassle for someone just looking for the best audio editing option he can find easily, because that person would definitely not pick any iPad app if he or she had the option between that and a desktop application. The same thing applies to video editing. Actually, video editing would be even worse if it wasn't for LumaFusion. See, I wanted to edit this video on the iPad, but I immediately could see that my edits are way too advanced for it, at least on apps like Premiere Rush and iMovie. But the best app for video editing on the iPad is LumaFusion, and it's pretty good and it comes closest to what you can do on laptops, but it still has some limitations. It had more before actually, and now it's actually very good and it's come a very long way. With LumaFusion on the iPad, you can play 4K video on 4K video on 4K video with no hassle, but there's a certain line of easiness and complicatedness where if your video or your project reaches, you just can't use your iPad to edit. LumaFusion is great and all, but if you've already been editing video and are used to some standard applications of today like Premiere, Final Cut, or DaVinci Resolve, you might feel like it's holding you back. Not just in power or limited functionality, but just in the way it does things. If I scaled my videos down a little bit, I actually think I could edit them using LumaFusion without too much problems. In fact, I almost edited this whole video on it, but I didn't though, not because of LumaFusion itself, but because of one of my least favorite parts of the media creation experience on the iPad, aka the file management system. It's actually a whole lot better than it was before, thanks to updates and everything, and it has a proper file manager now and has external hard drive support. But if it's not a good hard drive or SSD, it acts slower than a computer or a laptop. And when you even have the files on there, things aren't as simple as just dragging and dropping into the timeline with many apps. LumaFusion doesn't have this problem though, because it's just a great application. But even with proper mouse support being a thing, the iPad just doesn't make video editing easier than using a laptop for the most part. At this current moment at least. I really do think it's on the level where 80 to 90% of YouTubers can actually make their videos on it though, but you're not gonna be editing movies on this to be realistic, right? So you can't really compare it to the real desktop applications. And it may seem outrageous to want to compare them in this way, but everyone's always wondering if the iPad can replace a laptop. Since we're here, let's talk about the popular question. Can the iPad Pro replace your laptop? I mean, we already know the answer in areas like video editing, yes, but can the iPad Pro replace your laptop overall? This question would have had a different answer in 2018 and a different one in 2019, but it's 2020 now. And my short answer is yes, the iPad Pro can replace your laptop. But my long answer is it can just about replace your laptop, no, it cannot replace your laptop, and it'll actually be better than your laptop, depending on who you are. Now, it's really not that complicated. Let me explain. If you're a regular user and you use your laptop for school or work to write some essays and you do a lot of web browsing, then yes, the iPad can replace your laptop. It could always replace your laptop if this is all you wanted to use it for, but in the past, it wouldn't have been as good. See, the iPad couldn't browse desktop pages properly before. I mean, you could request a desktop site or whatever, but it was basically a bigger iPhone. Now, with iPadOS and a new Safari, you can actually go on full web pages and have it work like a laptop. You can actually run the full YouTube website. And even crazier, with the new Safari, you have the option to subscribe to me, and you can even turn on all notifications so you always know when I make a new video like this one. I know, it's crazy. It's actually even better though, because if you have the YouTube app in your iPad or iPhone, you might know about the picture-in-picture feature where YouTube keeps playing the video you're watching even when you leave the app. Actually, you probably don't, because iPhones don't support that feature. It's only on Android. Technically, the iPad doesn't support this either on the YouTube app, but if you use Safari, you can do it with any video you play online. You can even resize it and hide it, so it's actually a bit better than the norm on Android. It also works for apps like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, etc. with no problems too. So if you don't want to use it for school or work, or if you want to work inefficiently, it's really good for that too. I think you should really look into choosing which size iPad you want though if you want to consume a whole lot of media on it. I have the 11-inch version, and there's supposed to be a less than 2-inch difference between it and the 12.9-inch version, but when you see them side by side, I promise it looks like way more. The only difference when it comes to consuming media isn't only the screen size though. I hear the 12.9-inch version sounds a good amount louder, but the speakers on both of them in general are very good. Not just how they sound, but how they're designed as well. They have stereo sound, but they aren't just 2 speakers actually, they have 4. All have precise cutouts in the metal and are designed pretty symmetrically and pretty well in general. They sound pretty good too. Hear it for yourself. They're actually louder than my laptop. Apple did a good job, not just in quality and quantity, but also in placement as well. They're not placed on the back or on the front, where cases could actually block them, even though it might seem like a good idea to put it there. They're actually placed on the side where nothing gets in the way of them. Anyways, long story short, if you're using your laptop for these standard things, then yes, absolutely, the iPad can replace your laptop for sure. In fact, there are a couple things it does that might make you like it better than your laptop depending on who you are. But we're going to talk about that very, very soon. Right now, we're going to talk about the people that shouldn't even think of getting an iPad to replace their laptop. To be honest, these people already know themselves, and they know that the kind of work they do definitely couldn't be handled by an iPad. Who are these people? Well, some video editors, like we talked about before, if your videos are above a certain level of difficulty, but also just people who need or just really want a laptop. You're not going to want to code and design applications with the iPad if that's what you do. What software are you going to use? The Notes app? Stop. Just stop. I'm trying to be serious here. Just about no coder will be happier or more efficient with the iPad instead of a laptop. Same thing goes for any other person that does anything very specific that needs some kind of specific application. The iPad probably doesn't have it. If you're also just a person that loves everything about their laptop and the laptop experience and are very used to it, you have your shortcuts, you probably use Windows, one of your favorite places to go is the control panel, yeah, you're gonna want to keep your laptop. The iPad is not for you. But there's some people that would be happier with the iPad and actually have it work better for them compared to a laptop. So we already know an iPad is very different from a laptop. But it's not so different from a phone. I mean, it is, like more than ever before, but it does kind of act like a phone, you know? The way it moves and the way it just does things. It's very different from a laptop, but not that much from a phone. You know what I mean? If you're a person that prefers the way phones behave and just do things, and you're not too big a fan of the way laptops do things, maybe they feel too computery for you, then you're going to be a very big fan of the iPad, a good amount more than your laptop. Let me show you some things to think about. Laptops can multitask, and the iPad can too, but it does it in a completely different way. It's just more clean, right? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not computery at all. It's definitely more phony. Not fake, but very similar to the phone way of doing things, you know? You touch the screen like a phone. You don't treat it like a mini computer like a laptop. It just feels more portable, so you actually sort of carry it around like a phone. In fact, it even runs phone applications. Anything you can have on your iPhone, you can have on your iPad. And still at the same time, you can fully browse websites like a laptop and do other laptop things as well. The iPad is like a crossbreed device that tries to take tasks and things from laptops and do it in its own way, which is a very familiar way because it's very similar to the phone way. Like, it's really different from any other laptop. Other people that would prefer the iPad as well are digital artists or artists in general, like I've talked about. I'm mainly talking drawers though, like those who draw. You guys know yourself. The iPad plus Apple Pencil combination just gives a great experience as opposed to the disconnected experience on laptops or even mouses or the external sketching pads. And they're pretty good apps to take advantage of the Apple Pencil too. Basically, if you like to draw and drawing is your main thing, then the iPad is subjectively just better than any other laptop for you. You'd love it more. An area where the iPad is objectively better than basically every other laptop though, including Apple's own MacBook, is when it comes to the webcam, or the camera, or cameras actually, because it actually has a front and a back one. The front-facing camera can record it up to 60 frames per second in 1080p, and it looks pretty good. I mean, much better than my laptop at least. And it sounds better too. You might have heard by now that the iPad has pretty nice microphones. I have a theory that these are the same microphones that came out on the 16-inch MacBook. You know, the microphones that people were saying have like almost studio quality. I think these are the same microphones. But there's also a rumor I heard that the cameras on the iPad are actually the same cameras on the iPhone XS Max. Now, I could definitely see this sort of in daylight. In nighttime, not so much. It can shoot at up to 4K 60 frames per second, and the footage actually looks pretty good. It's pretty good even when just taking pictures. It has HDR, you can take pictures with portrait mode, only selfies though, because it only works with the front camera, but it does look as good as it does with the selfies from iPhones. You can also shoot slow-mo at up to 240 frames per second in 1080p, and there's even a time-lapse mode. The cameras in general basically feel identical to the ones you can find on iPhones, which is a very good thing. But the software is just like iPhones too, so you can only access the camera settings Apple wants you to, no manual settings or anything. The cameras also do some cool AR stuff, like Animoji for example, which I'm pretty sure everyone has forgotten about, including me until I came to make this video. But the back camera is actually really good at AR. I know this mostly because of gaming. Angry Birds to be specific. Well, AR Angry Birds. I sort of felt like AR was a bit of a gimmick, but after I played Angry Birds on the iPad, I saw what proper AR is actually like, and I definitely like it. I'm actually not sure how much better it can actually get, but the 2020 iPad Pro came out, and it seems the only main upgrade is in the camera and AR department. So I'm pretty curious to see how much better AR gaming actually is on a new iPad, because it's already great with this one. This one is great at gaming in general actually. I wouldn't say it's better than all laptops out there just because it depends on the graphics card, the game you want to play, who you want to play with, yada yada. But for the most part, if you don't have a laptop with a great graphics card running Windows, the iPad will probably be better for gaming. In fact, it's even better than the PS4 when it comes to certain games. A big part of this is because you can play with it everywhere, from the kitchen to the couch and even to the bathroom. It's also very powerful and runs just about whatever game you throw at it with ease. The game has to exist for the iPad in the first place though, for you to play it. Like, you can compete against the PS4 with the game they both play, yes, but you can't go play a game like GTA 5 on the iPad Pro. Not because it's not powerful enough to play it, but because it's not just available for the iPad. I'm actually not sure if we'll be able to play it or not, but we'll never know, because you can't play it on the iPad. Same thing goes for all the other great games you already know and love on consoles. I mean, you probably don't expect that much from the iPad, and I get it, I don't really either, but the iPad has been pushing a lot of boundaries. It does have its own gaming library too, aka Apple Arcade, but I haven't used it too much and I haven't found games that really interest me there just yet. If you play a lot of games though, then your battery isn't going to be lasting so long. But if you're using the iPad in general, the battery life will surprise you because of how good it is. When it comes to battery life, the iPad beats my laptop easily. I always felt like laptops just have bad battery life for some stupid reason. Like, I'll just be on one web page watching Netflix or YouTube or just typing on Google Docs or something and my laptop would be dead after like 4 hours. It'd be doing basically nothing, but because it's a laptop, a lot of stuff will be running in the background and just killing the battery for no reason. On the iPad, things are handled differently. It lasts a good amount longer, even almost 2 years later. I think it's because it handles things closer to the way phones handle things. You could be watching Netflix, YouTube, typing, doing this, doing that, and just doing the same stuff you're basically doing on a laptop, but in the iPad way, and the iPad will last you much longer. It's crazy. Basically, at the very least, the iPad will last you a whole day. And not a whole day using it like a phone, but a whole day using it closer to like a laptop. That's pretty good. There's certain things that just absolutely kill the battery of the iPad though. Apart from the obvious like gaming and video editing, there are things like just using Procreate or Notability or other note-taking apps. Not so much Apple's Notes itself, but Notability and especially Procreate seems to just drain the battery of the iPad when you're using it with the Apple Pencil. I don't like this very much. Speaking of, there's some other not so good things about the iPad that I don't like so much. Like the keyboard for example. Not a physical keyboard or any physical keyboard, but the on-screen keyboard. I love that you can make it phone size to type fast, but the swiping isn't the best, and I use swiping a lot. You can actually download other keyboards, but they're not as pretty. Another annoying thing the iPad kept doing to me was that it kept deleting my books and uploading it to iCloud. Now I didn't want this to happen because I'll be traveling and I want to read my books without access to Wi-Fi, right? So I turned off all the settings on the iPad that would do this, all the iCloud settings and everything. And the iPad still deleted my books the next time, but this time it just didn't upload it to iCloud. It just deleted all my books, like forever, gone. Great. Another great but annoying thing is mouse support. We know it works pretty well with the Apple trackpads, but with the regular basic mouse, it has some flaws. For one, if your mouse doesn't have a horizontal scroll wheel, you can't scroll left or right in important areas. You can turn on assistive touch, which will make you have that shortcut always on your screen, but it does let you move around using the mouse as a touch, like a finger in certain places. So it kind of fixes things, but then some things don't work the way they should. This isn't too big a deal though, it's just something I definitely noticed when I try to take advantage of the mouse support, and I want it to work as perfectly as a laptop. For the most part though, it works well and it looks pretty cool and unique. You just will probably have to touch your screen at certain times if you just have a basic mouse. There are also some other cool features I use on the iPad as well. It has a guided access feature where if you have it on, you press the top button 3 times and it'll keep your iPad in a single app and let you section out any areas you don't want anyone to have access to. You can't multitask, you can't go home, and you can't even lock the iPad. You have to triple tap the top button again and put in your passcode to get out. And along those same lines, it also has features to help you track your screen time and monitor your digital habits, and it also tries to help you regulate it as well. You can set down times or certain times when you're limited to certain apps, and the iPad will grade them out and not let you use them, unless you press the ignore button, but then you'll have to live with the guilt, you know? You can also set it to block individual web pages, and all these settings apply to all your devices signed into iCloud. The iPad also has a bunch of cool add-on tricks and shortcuts to maneuver the interface. Some work well and seamlessly, while some aren't so consistent, so you would probably not be using them. All in all though, if there's one thing you should get from this video, is that the iPad Pro doesn't play by the old rules. It plays by its own rules, for good and sometimes for bad. Now, can it replace your laptop? Well, hopefully you know the answer to that question by now. And you should let me know down below in the comment section, and let me know why as well. Why it can or why it cannot. And also, if you have any other questions that you want me to answer I didn't answer in this video, you can ask it there as well. But as far as the main question, as in how has it held up long term, like almost 2 years? Well, let me say this. When I bought the iPad, it was a great device. And it's even much better right now. And it's not as good as it actually could be still because of the software updates. So I see the iPad Pro as a very good investment. It's actually a great device. It was, it still is, and I think it's even going to be greater. Thanks for watching. The iPad is the best tablet in the world. It's not even a competition. It's actually kind of more than a tablet, much more. It is definitely good at many, many things, but obviously in reality, it can't compete with other devices in certain areas, like duh. Like gaming's better on a console, like the PS4, right? Right? Right?